Namaskar. Namaskar and welcome back to the Eikam series on the Gita on the go with us. Thus far, in the last few conversations, we have spoken about how we make our own shift. What's the R, what's the verb in Tat Tvam Asi? Asi, R. How do you do this? We understood Tvam, we understood Tat, and now we are making this journey and figuring out what is it that we need to do. It's the lab, it's the practical, experiential aspect of the shift and the migration from Tvam to Tat, from the Kshetra to the Kshetrajna. The last time that we spoke about the kind of the Daiviya Asura Sampada Vibhaga Yoga. And therefore we spoke of the kind of qualities we need to imbibe in ourselves. So be fearless, have purity of intention, make sure that you're able to look at the larger, remove the difference between the one and the other, get over the idea of aham mama, of me and mine, and look at the larger picture, do it for the larger cause, give, offer, stay in the space of doing, giving, being, and in the space and doing all this with absolute purity of intention. And it is with that I now welcome Samir back to us. Namaskar, Samir. And we welcome Samir back to us as we get into chapter 17, which is the Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga. And therefore, Samir, the question that automatically emerges from the previous one where we discussed the Daivi Asura Sampad is the idea कि आपने ये तो हमें बता दिया how I should be. You've told me that I should be fearless, there should be purity of intention, that we should learn to offer and give and go beyond me and mine into, beyond aham and mama, into the larger space, the larger cause, the larger picture. But the question I have for you is, हम क्या कर रहे हैं? मतलब what am I doing and how am I doing? You've told me what I need to be.
Correct.
And primarily that you've told me that I need to go beyond the I. There can't be the I.
Correct.
Move to from I to self and self to Tat. To that. But what am I doing and how am I doing this?
Right. First, the Bhagwad Gita won't give us moksha. If we keep holding on even to the Bhagwad Gita, it will hold us back. Right? I love to use the example here, Eika, of the pole vaulter. And he jumps very high, right? More than most other people. But when he reaches that peak, he has to give up the pole. Only then can he cross over.
Yes.
And only he crosses, nothing else crosses with him. Correct?
No.
Exactly the same way. We need to start the practice. We need to do that run up. We need to hold the pole. We need to have a pole that can bend, that can make a spring. Right? We need to practice. And we need to practice the right things consistently. All of that we've covered. Your question, if I can interpret it, is what are we supposed to practice? Right?
What am I supposed to practice?
Okay. So I'm going to first start off by saying that right at the beginning, Krishna told us that action is inevitable.
Yes.
Just a few chapters back, he told us everything in the material world is woven through the three gunas.
Yes.
So which by definition means that the actions themselves would also be woven through with these three gunas.
Yes.
So we have Ravan who did worship. We have Ram who did worship. Right? What was the intent behind these? And based on the intent of how these actions, the actions are also worship. Both are worship.
Yes.
Both were ritualistic worship, there was meditation, all of it was there. But what was the intention that drove these? Now, when you look at the intention and you look at the way these intentions divide, even the concept of worship itself has been divided into the three gunas. So, Krishna says, those who are Sattvic worship the Devas. What are Devas? Those who have Devi Sampad.
Yes.
Which means they inculcate virtues of blah blah blah, right? Whatever.
Yes.
Those who are Rajasic worship the Rakshasas and the Yakshas, which basically are beings who hold on, acquire, hold on, mind, right? And then there are the tamasic who worship the ghosts and the pretas, the bhutas and the pretas. Where do the bhutas and the pretas live?
Bhuta kala so.
Correct.
Yeah, past.
I mean, one of the interpretations of bhuta is ghosts, but it's not actually ghosts, right? So what do they worship? They worship the past. They are in their past. They live in their past. They are continuously thinking about their own glories, and they have no actions that are moving them forward. Such worship is tamasic.
So, logically, if they are about the past and the bhuta, then the Rajasic should be about the future. Neither of them are present in the present.
Yes, absolutely. So very nice. And you've hit the nail on the head. So what is the Rajasic guy doing? He is acquiring.
Next. What's next? What's up? What's
acquiring
more?
comes from where? From the future, right?
Yes.
I am doing this because I wanted that.
Yes.
So that worship. And the whole idea of worship is not Om Narayanaya Namaha.
No,
right?
no.
That's not worship. Worship, actually very beautifully defined by Swami Chinmayananda, is any act that we do. And in our conversation that we were talking about, in chapter 4, he talked about yagyas.
Yes.
And even breathing, he converted into a yagya.
Yes.
So the whole concept of action itself, which is dedicated, not just action, action that has dedication in it, that has commitment in it, is worship. But what's the focus of your worship? Is it the past? Living in the past? Is it acquiring something for the future? Are you running away from something? Are you running towards something? Or are you just being here, giving? Now, if you look at that, then let's take one more very day-to-day activity that we all do, right? Some people do it for living, some people
live to do it.
Yes, live to do it. So
I can think of so many things, Samir.
So therefore, Krishna divides even food into 3 categories. And he says, food which is juicy, food which is nutritious, food which is fresh, food which is moderate in taste, and so on and so forth. He takes a whole bunch of qualities of food and says, this is food which is sattvic. So people who have sattvic nature, it's not about that food itself is good or bad, but the nature, my nature being sattvic, I am by nature attracted towards these type of foods. Foods that are pungent, spicy, बहुत खट्टे, अरे अचार के बिना मैं खा ही नहीं सकता, right? This achar itself is nothing wrong with the achar. It's about my mind, right?
Yes.
I need that craving of spice in my life. It is external. Such food is rajasic, and food which is impure, food which is rotten. Now, just translate food into whatever you are doing as action, right? And that also then becomes tamasic in nature. So he takes food and he makes that into a set of 3, and which is why we use the word Shraddhatraya, because it starts with Shraddha, but then he actually takes up all actions, right? In the last chapter, he told us that let's get going, let's do. And he talked about giving alms, dan karne ko bola, and he started talking of giving. I'm going to use the act of giving also. When I give to somebody with contempt, right? कभी-कभी देखता हूँ मैं. Actually, the Baba of Shirdi used to say that it may be that you can't give, but don't disrespect, right? So when you have to say no, you say no, but you join your hands and you say no, sorry, right? But when you give with contempt, you give to a person who doesn't need it, and you've just gone and given it because you want to give it. Such giving itself is also tamasic. When you give with the intent to get something back, what would it be?
Rajasic.
Obviously, right? I might hurt a lot of corporate bodies right now, but the CSR that they do is all Rajasic. I need my name on the hoarding there saying garden maintained by, right? My foundation, my this, my that. The moment that my is there and if there is a sort of name, fame, in that form come back, or a reward that the person is looking through for the act of giving. But when I give just because giving is right, giving is my duty, then that giving becomes sattvic.
I want to understand this further. We know that the way our philanthropy is organized, or the way philanthropy is described, or the whole idea of giving, is described at 3 levels, and all of it emanates from the basic understanding of the human psychology, that the human mind itself is unable to do something without a trade back. Okay, which is why we've been talking about mukshata. We are somewhere, the whole idea of karma and karma phala is conditioned into us, including in the act of charity. Right. So it may not be a material reward,
Correct.
but there is a reward. So that understanding that inherently human beings are not altruistic. So we will do nothing without a motive, right? So even the way the philanthropy is structured, ki daan hua. So daan is what I do in return for celestial blessings. I asked for something, that wish got fulfilled, I did daan, and I became, literally the hand of God, which doing God's work. Similarly, we have diksha, dakshina, which is the idea of my giving for, it is my give back for the causes that made me, my school, my teacher, my institution, things that made me. It is my diksha, it is my humble offering in return for the causes that made me. So there is a return, there's a consideration established, to use the accounting term. And then there is bhiksha. So even bhiksha, जैसे आपने कहा तामसिक भिक्षा की बात करी, but जैसे भिक्षा भी अगर मैंने दी, भीख भी मैंने दी, तो I do it in return for blessings. भगवान तुझे खुश रखे, right? So the fact is that, and I'm going to come back to the intention later. ये तो हमारे बहुत direct consideration established हो गए. If we are talking about karma as being a ledger and a trial balance, so we understand the fact that karma will have karma phala, including dan, diksha or bhiksha. Even my giving will have a karma phala. I can choose to distance myself from it, but I don't need to. So where does my intention interact with a possible return, whether that return is of blessings or it is my debt that I'm paying?
Okay, I understand your question, and I'm going to take whether it's dan, whether it is dakshina, or whether it is bhiksha, the intent of behind the act of giving changes that to Sattvic, Rajasic or Tamasic. Let's take giving something to a beggar.
It's also the origin, right? Not only changes the nature, but it's also
it
the
changes
state
the
of
nature.
mind.
I'll put it like this. Yes, of course, it's a state of mind. When I give, I see this old woman standing at the crossroads under the Andheri flyover, and my heart wells up with pain for her.
Yes.
And I give.
Yes.
What sort of giving would this be? It is still bhiksha, but it is out of compassion.
Yes.
Therefore, you are not expecting
Karuna.
anything in return. Giving
Yes.
was right, and you gave it.
Yes.
Right? When you gave it, and you gave the same thing, you gave because she was pestering. Right? Tuck, 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 tuck. Or
just to get rid of the nuisance.
Just to get rid of the nuisance. Then what happened? There was contempt. You did the act is the same. You gave money to an old woman who was standing under the Andheri flyover, but you gave with content. And when you did that, the giving became tamasic. In the between these two, there is this माई अब आशीर्वाद तो दे, अब बोलते नहीं है, मानसिक रूप से सोचते हैं कि आशीर्वाद तो दे, अल्लाह की दुआ लग जाएगी, भगवान की दुआ लग जाएगी, तेरे बेटे फूले फले, राइट, ये, and you feel nice, oh somebody is blessed. That is rajasic. So the act itself can be the same across. At the surface, the act is the same. Somebody has put out his hand from a window of a car and given some money to an old woman who was standing under the bridge in Andheri.
Correct.
But what happened inside that person? Now, if I have given it out of compassion, if I have given it out of karuna, if I have given it out of love, if I have given it about the fact that it is right to give her because she should not be in this state of suffering, but I can't do anything beyond at least giving this money. In such a state, you have already started working from the Devi Sampad rather than the Asuri Sampad, and therefore it is Sattvic. Let me give an example from our Itihas. Karna was born with
The
a
kavach and
kavach
the
and a kunda. And he was protected. Because of that, he was impenetrable, invulnerable. And in the war, obviously, if he had that, he had an undue advantage because Arjun was not invulnerable.
Yes.
Indra went to him and asked for dan. So when he asked for dan, Indra timed himself and waited till all the gold had been distributed. And he went there and said, "Where is my gold?" And Karna had nothing to give. So he said, "Sorry, I don't have anything to give. Please come later or come tomorrow. I don't know." And Indra says, "But you are wearing things of gold. Why don't you give them?" Being very innocent, as if they are not welded into him. And he took his knife and he cut it from his skin.
Yes.
And he peeled it off and he gave it away. Did he know that this person was Indra? No.
May even have known, he would have still done it.
The point is, even if he knew, okay, let's say that he knew it was Indra, might be there would be a transaction. He didn't even know. It was just right that he give. Which is why he's called Danveer Karna. Not because he used to give lots of gold, but because his intent behind the giving was, giving is right. Now he got something very powerful in return, was a subsequent act that Indra gave out of his guilt, saying that I never expected this to happen, and therefore I now have to give you something in return. And he gives him that the Shakti, which cannot fail. Now, this whole transaction tells us a very beautiful story about charity, right? So we looked at charity, we looked at food, we looked at even worship. See, broadly, if you look at it, essentially, all work that has been done without the expectation of reward because it is being done as it is my duty to do it.
Or it must be done.
Or it must be done, which is also part of the duty or the nature of duty that we have, is essentially Sattvic, where I am doing action for the intent of acquiring, making myself, my small I, bigger in whatever way I think, more powerful, more wealthy, more this, aham mama, growing bigger and bigger, is Rajasic. But when I start doing actions to hurt others, when I start doing actions to make others feel smaller, what am I doing? I am doing tamasic action. So any of these, right? Any action, because everything we do is action.
Yes. Two questions. One is, are we always Rajasic or Tamasic, or as we discussed in the context of emotions and power, I may have different intentions towards different contexts.
Very nice. So you see, what happens is, we are not uniformly Sattvic all the time. It is our intent to be that.
Yes.
It is that is the journey.
Yes.
But we are not. So how do we get out of it? What is the methodology prescribed? The prescribed methodology is called Manan. See, right now, you and the viewers have listened.
Yes.
So they have done what is called Shravana. But if I do not reflect upon this, if I do not sit back and say, from an accounting perspective, do a balance sheet of my daily activities. You know, lie down, you're going back to sleep, and you say, okay, these are the actions that I did, and this is the intent behind those actions. Now, the moment you have started reflecting, one, you have distanced yourself. Two, you've started reviewing, and when you review, you can change your behavior. You can change the actions the next day.
Yeah, but that is such a huge responsibility, Samir.
But then ultimately it is your responsibility. He said, Uddharet Atmana Atmanam. You only can force yourself to stand up. When you stand up from this chair, you will put your hand here and push yourself. Nobody is going to come and pull you up. It is our responsibility. See, in Viveka Chudamani, in verse 2, Bhagavan Shankaracharya says that there are 9 steps to moksha. And the first one is to have attained Manushya Janma.
The very virtue and the privilege of
because we alone have that discrimination that allows us to say this is right and this is wrong. allows us the right to give us the power to say no.
So essentially you're saying in the previous chapter we spoke about the awareness of our emotion. We've spoken about it in the previous 2 chapters. In this chapter you're saying that emotion की awareness तो रखो ही, उसके साथ intention की रखो. And that they're actually 2 different things that together make our guna.
And therefore
reflect our
reflect. So you start with your action.
Yes.
And then you go back to your emotion, and then go even deeper and look at the intention that motivated this particular action. And when you are able to link that, you can start dropping the tamasic and move towards the sattvic. And we go back to the story of the robber. So the robber, the sattvic guy, he is now ready to hold your hand, and you are ready to hold his hand rather, and go right up to the edge of the forest. And at the edge of the forest, what is it that he leads us to? He leads us to something that we recite at the end of every chapter, Om Tat Sat. What a beautiful,
it is Om Tat Sat.
What a beautiful ending. See, Krishna says here very clearly, Om Tat Sat iti nirdesho brahmanas trividha smritaha. The 3 nirdesha, the 3 indicators to Brahman. Om is the sound,
yes,
which is the subtlest manifestation of the unmanifest. Right? In the beginning there was the word.
Yes.
Right? It is from the word that everything originates. Nada is the origin of, from the unmanifest, the first origin is Nada, from which comes the space, and so on and so forth. The grossification happens there.
Yes.
So Om is the symbol of the transcendental reality.
Primordial.
Tat is the word that has been used across all texts because there is no word to describe it. We just said it is that transcendental reality which is permanently existing Sat. So this whole journey is towards this Om Tat Sat. That's how he even ends that chapter. He says, while you're looking at the actions, don't forget that these actions will take you to that edge of the forest from where you will jump across into that city of joy, which is Om Tat Sat.
So powerful, Samir. And I'm just thinking that even if we can just concentrate, again, beautifully explained the idea of awareness of action leading to awareness of emotion, which is the bhav, leading to awareness of intention, which is the niyat, which is collectively they are the manifestation of the guna that you're operating from. And between this, you will naturally make the quest for the highest and the highest version of your own self, and that takes you into Om Tat Sat, the primordial. If the Brahman had a sound, the sound of the Brahman is Om.
Correct.
It is the primordial sound. I'm quite looking forward now to figure out how this all comes back together as we get into chapter 18. Samir, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
For the Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yoga.
Om Hari Om. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagwad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Shraddhatraya Vibhaga Yogo Nama Saptadasha Adhyayah. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.